All right, welcome in. Wait for a little bit more people to get on. Got started a few minutes late, but we'll be starting here in probably a couple minutes. Feel free to, as I go, this is interactive. You guys can feel free to drop some questions in the comments. Check in. Where are you guys from? These are we don't get a couple hundred people on here. They're usually pretty intimate, so I can answer as many questions as you guys need. I'm here for you. I already know this stuff. So, Jay, what's up? New Orleans. All right, so we will just go straight into it. All right, so for those of you who don't know me, my name's Corey Reiser. I was a 10-year Army vet. I was an artillery officer. Towards the end of my career, I decided to kind of go in a different direction. I wasn't really sure if I wanted to stay in the military or not. And I started learning about real estate. I read a couple books. I talk about this all the time. My favorite book was Rich Dad Poor Dad. It was one of the books that changed my life. And started realizing that there was other options out there outside of just doing your typical 9 to 5 or, your long career with a retirement in your, 50s or 60s. And I started thinking that like I could build that. I started learning and I realized that it was really, it was going to be a long journey, but I knew that it was going to be tangible and that I could actually make it happen. So that kind of brought me to my financial freedom as I exited the military. I did all of that stuff. I bought real estate. I started a company. I educated myself. I learned. I networked. I expanded my mind. I thought completely differently about the world and success and all these other things. And I exited the military in March of 22. So I just hit about 3 years out. And I've been completely self-sufficient, self-employed the entire time. And now I'm building School of Grit. So really the mission for School of Grit is to help other service members that are not looking for the status quo of, continued W-2 employment and they want to go try and build something on their own. I've built School of Grit, or I'm still building School of Grit actively to help service members and veterans achieve that. So first class, we talked about mindset shift. We talked about how to think about wealth and success, real estate investing, why you do it, entrepreneurship, why you do it, and really just kind of tried to change the perspective of like your fixed mindset, which is not your fault. You're a product of the school systems and you're a product of kind of the way you were raised. And not that that was bad at all. It's just a different way of thinking. And I say this a lot is if you are happy and what is working for you with your current mindset and everything else, if that's working for you, then don't listen to anything I have to say and keep going and killing it. Keep going and doing the stuff that's working. But if it's not working for you, the only logical thing that you can do is the opposite. And here at School of Grit, we are teaching you the opposite. So today we're going to go not super deep into real estate investing, but I'm going to give you, because it is, real estate is huge. It is a very big topic. Millions of people invest in real estate. It is such a deep space. It is impossible to cover it honestly in like a couple of years. It's a lifelong process of understanding it, learning the markets, understanding the vernacular and all that other stuff. But what I will do today is I'm going to explain to you the general reasons as to why it is beneficial to invest in real estate, why you should, and then compounding on that is the benefit that you get specifically with the VA loan, how massively powerful that can be for you if you use it in a certain way to help you to build up your cash flow, to generate wealth, to gain leverage, and work towards your financial freedom. So without further ado, we'll get started on this. So why real estate, right? If you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and I've said this for years, okay, most important things for humans right? Obviously, food, air, right? Like we can't go longer than a couple minutes without oxygen. So that's a physiological need, right? But then you've got food, water, and shelter. And shelter is real estate. That's what it is, right? We used to live in mud huts. We used to, live out in the middle of the woods, and we had log cabins and all this other stuff. And the log cabin was kind of like the original real estate investment. You bought something, you bought a little bit of land, you built on it, and then, you protected your family, you weathered the storms, you kept warm in the winter, and that is what real estate is. So conceptually, one of the main reasons why you should be investing in real estate is because it is something that other people need. Okay. Regardless of whether the market goes up, down, or sideways, people will always need shelter. They will always cling to the safety and security that a roof over your head provides. Right. So, and I try and take it to a further level of like service, and like, not only should you be investing in real estate, but you should be providing good homes for other people, right? So you provide the service or the good service, right, of owning the home, and then you take that seriously and you do your best. You make sure that your stuff works. You make sure that you're buying in good areas and you're providing a good home for someone. Okay, residential real estate specifically is very personal. It's very like people are going to have babies in your properties. They're going to get married. They're going to start their lives. Like they're going to raise kids. And I say that, as a service member, you should always strive to provide the highest service and the best quality, because that's what you're doing. And the reason that real estate is a good investment is because you're providing that good or service, and people are willing to pay an extra for that. So that's why it's a good investment, is because you're providing something that other people need and that they want, or is a convenience for them, or whatever it is. Okay. And this has been, real estate has been a thing for 100 years plus. It's been a thing for a very long time, but, modern investing in America, real estate is the thing. Okay. So, why real estate? So here's some of the basics. Okay. So some of the best stuff, like the golden nuggets of real estate, is you will build equity, okay, which means the value of your home and appreciation. The debt will go down as somebody else is paying down the note, the mortgage, right? So rent minus mortgage, like rent minus expenses, that cash flow, the mortgage has the principal pay down in it. And we're kind of getting into some deep stuff here, but the mortgage has a principal in it, and that goes back to you at the end in the form of equity. So as you pay down your debt, which is generally principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. Okay, that's PITI is what we call it, PITI. The other three, the insurance, the taxes, and the interest, you'll probably never see those again. Okay, but the principal will come back to you in the form of building up equity. Appreciation is the property's value going up over time. And I will say this because most people don't say this. Property values do not always go up, but given a long time, like given a 5 or 10 year period, properties generally go up. Okay. The average American house, like the American housing market, has averaged like 3 to 5% for the last 30 years. Okay. That's to include 2008. Like everybody talks about 2008. Yes, those homes have rebounded and they've continued to go up. And of note, during the crisis, during the 2008 housing recession, rents went up. So if you had bought and owned real estate, you actually ended up doing much better because the demand for rent and properties increased. Okay. And then they talk passive income. Okay. So I will root you in reality. You are most likely not going to buy a completely passive income property off the bat your first time around. You are going to probably work more than you are comfortable with. And it will probably be very frustrating in the beginning, because at the beginning, you're probably going to suck. Okay. And that's totally normal. I sucked. Everybody sucks when they get started. Okay. But over time, as you build out your systems and your process and you make improvements to the property and you get good at tenant selection and you get great tenants, the you will still have to work on some of these properties until even you hand it off to property management. You're still making some decisions, but when they say passive income, you are working less and your hourly rate of what you're actually doing is increasing. So I always say that it's relatively passive. Okay. But we'll just leave it at that for now. I'll talk about this later. Additionally, real estate is heavily beneficial for taxes. Okay. And I won't talk about this in depth, but the way that you make money, the way that you gain tax benefits is through depreciation of the property. Okay. So it's in the IRS tax code. It explains depreciation, but basically you are able to offset your gains, the free passive cash flow, right? So cash flow is income minus expenses. The delta is your cash flow. So that's your profit. And generally, if you depreciate your real estate, it usually does a 1-for-1. It's not always the same, but basically you make money, you make profit, and then your depreciation kind of offsets that profit. It's not always perfect, but you're generally getting more tax-free income because you're able to do that. And that's why people investors invest in real estate, is because of the tax benefits, because it's your dollar is going farther because it's being taxed less. So that makes sense. Okay. Couple of different types of financing for real estate properties. The one we're going to talk the most about is the VA loan. So you got VA loan, you've got conventional loans, there's hard money loans. Obviously, you can pay cash if you want to do that. But generally, or the one that I talk about the most, is your owner occupied loan. So that's your FHA and your VA loan. So that means you buy the property and you must live in the property. Okay. And that will go into house hacking here in the next slide. Okay. So what is the VA loan? All right. So the VA loan is a benefit that is provided to active duty service members and veterans that allows them to purchase a home it allows you to purchase a home with no money down or little to no money down. Okay. And I'm not going to go super deep into this on this live. Again, I'm trying to keep on wave tops here. But this does allow you to buy a property, put $0 down. Okay. So you put, like, at closing, everybody else, all the civilians, they have to put, 3.5%, 5%, 10% down. You do not have to put anything down as a service member or veteran. What you do have is it's a little bit over 2%, but it is a VA funding fee, and that goes into the cost of the loan. So you're actually buying a property and you're taking out a little bit more debt. Like if you bought a property for $200,000, your VA funding fee would be about 3%. Sorry, 2%. I think it's about 2.3% of that total. So it'd be somewhere between like $4,000 and $5,000, but that would go into the cost of the loan. So if you bought a home, let's just say it was an even $5,000. If you bought a home for $200,000, the loan would be for approximately $205,000. But the benefit is you get to keep your cash, which I'll talk here in a second. You get to keep your cash and put it all on debt, and then you just make the payment. Okay, so I'm going to explain all this stuff and why this is extremely beneficial here in a second. But that is one of the largest benefits. The other benefits are it's lower monthly payments because you're getting a lower interest rate. It's usually a point or so below what the other loan options are. And then there's also no PMI, which is private mortgage insurance. And that can be a couple $100 a month. So you're saving yourself that. Additionally, if you are on active duty, it's like one of my favorite benefits. So we just talked tax savings, right? If you are on active duty, or if you have some form of disability from the VA, and you use that disability to pay for your mortgage. So both BAH and your VA disability, both of those are tax-free. And I'm not a CPA, but I will tell you that if you are able to pay down your debt with tax-free money that's already tax-free, that goes so much farther than paying down your mortgage with post-tax dollars. So your civilian counterparts are getting taxed first on their pay, then they're paying the interest and all the other stuff, and their dollar is not going as far. Like it is such a power, like it's such a powerhouse for you to be able to, or power move, to be able to pay down your mortgage while on active duty and buy this property with no money down and have your BAH, which is tax-free, to pay down your mortgage. It's unbelievable. And the fact that more veterans and active duty service members don't do this blows me away, but that is why I'm here, to try and help you like get started and understand all this stuff and how like significant of a financial, like in my opinion, misstep that is. Oops. Okay. Any questions thus far? I do a lot of talking. I have a lot of experience with this stuff, and I want to make sure I'm not going too fast for everybody. So I'm going to take some tactical pauses here. Any questions up until now, just drop them in the chat. We'll wait like a minute or so, and then we'll get started with the next part. All right. Nothing heard. If you got anything, just drop it in the chat. Okay. Next. So how to, oops, sorry. I'm going to go. Let's see. We are actually going to go back a slide. All right. So let's talk what house hacking is. So house hacking is basically you buy a home and you try and you live in that property. So you can buy a single family home, you can buy a duplex, which is 2 units, a triplex, which is 3, or a quadplex, which is 4 total units. And your requirement, because you're using the VA loan and it is an owner occupied property, you have to live in the property for a minimum of 1 year. Okay. Now here's the cool part. There is no stipulation as to how many people you can fit in a single family home, right? If you want to live in the basement, you can, and you have a 3-bedroom house, you can rent out those 3 rooms, which is what house hacking is. You rent out the rooms to generate as much income on that property as physically possible. Okay. And that's going to increase your earning capacity, and that's going to increase ideally your cash flow, because the goal is to get those rooms rented for more than your mortgage so that you are cash flowing the property while living in it. So you're basically living for free. The tenants that you provided value for, because you've provided them with a place to live, right? And a good home, right? They will pay down your mortgage because you're providing a service to them, which is living in the property. And you will then keep your BAH and pocket that. So you can now spend that elsewhere, right? So all of your mortgage is getting paid down. Ideally, that's the goal. And then you can take your BAH and start investing that elsewhere. Or you can take your BAH and, make some renovations to the property, but you're increasing your earning capacity. All while the property is generally going up in value. You can expect pretty easily 3%, 3 or 4% a year. So then you're getting leverage, which is, let's say if you bought for $200,000 and that property makes 3%, right? So that's $3,000 on every 100. So in the first year, you've just made $6,000 in appreciation because your property went up 3%. And that's on money that is not your money, right? That was the bank's money. So you just made $6,000 on 100% leverage. And I'm talking kind of into the weeds here, but you basically just made an infinite return on your dollar, right? Does that make sense? I hope so. We'll talk about, if you guys got questions on this, drop them in the chat, hit us up after the show. I'm happy to answer any questions. You can check out our Discord. We answer a ton of questions in there. We got probably about 100 people in that and another 50 or 60 in our private Facebook group. So if you're not in those, highly recommend. I'm in there. We've got plenty of other advisors, people that are actively doing this stuff in real time in today's market with today's rates and prices and everything else. People are still getting after it. People are still buying properties, and they're still doing, myself included, we're still doing this and generating wealth for ourselves and our families in the future. Okay. Now, so I did just talk about single family home. You can also do that with multi-unit up to 4 units. So basically how that house hack would work is you would move into one of those units. Let's say you bought a duplex or a quadplex, right? You'd move into one of the units. I always recommend having roommates in the unit that you're living in to increase your earning capacity, increase your income. And then you rent out the other spaces. And the cool thing, you rent out the other units. The cool thing about that is you don't have to, like, you can live in any of the units. So if you buy a property and it's under rented, right? And it's, let's say it's like $300 or $400 under rented per unit. You can go through, as long as the leases that are in place allow for this, right? You can end those leases or keep them in there. It's kind of up to you. But if you want to increase the rent and get market rent for what the market is willing to pay, if those leases end, you can move into a different unit, fix that, or, fix the first unit up, increase the rent, make it nicer, add some amenities, move out, rent that first unit, and then go to another one and do the same thing. And you can essentially do that in if you buy a quadplex, you can do that in all 4 units in like 3-month intervals. And you can just move from unit to unit to unit and fix it up in 3 months. And then in a year, you move out. Then you've stabilized the property, you've made your improvements, you've increased the value of it, because generally when you make improvements to a property, you are increasing the value of said property, right? And there's a lot of science and math and stuff that you can kind of do that, and some art. And then you've moved out, and now you have 4 units under your belt in the first year. And then after that, you go do it again. You rinse and repeat, and you ideally go get another 4 unit, and then do that for another year. And in 2 years, right? If you live to be 100, that's 2% of your life, right? In 2 years, if you're generating $100 to $200 per unit, right? And you did that, and you got 8 units total. You did a quadplex and then another quadplex, and you're making somewhere between $600 to $800 per property. You've just increased your passive cash flow, or relatively passive cash flow, right, by $1,200 to, let's say, $1,600. Okay. For a lot of people, that's a large portion. And this is where the financial freedom part comes in. For a lot of people, that's like 30 to 40, maybe 50% sometimes of their monthly income, right? So even if it's 25%, let's say it's 20% of your income. Think of it this way. By doing that over the last 2 years, by replicating and replacing 20% of your active salary, right? You just basically bought yourself every Friday off. So you now have a 3-day weekend every Friday, because you now make that money doing real estate and collecting the income from those properties. And now you just bought yourself every Friday. Okay. So now all you got to do is get back to the goal is to get to 100% of your minimum income that you need to live, right? So I say food, water, shelter. So when that cash flow, when that $16,000 or $2,000 in cash flow, if you need $4,000 to live, and that's food, water, shelter, maybe a little bit of savings, that's your financial freedom number. I need $4,000 a month, right? So you are now halfway there in 2 years, right? And everything that I've done, I own about 1.7 million in real estate right now, which might seem like a lot. It's actually not that much. Okay. It consists of 2 single family homes, a condo, 2 duplexes, and a farm, which is where I currently live now. I just bought this place, and it's a single family home, and I'm building out a studio in the barn. So it'll be 9 total doors and like 6 or 7 properties. And I make about, I've averaged probably 5 or 6% on all of my real estate that I've purchased over the last couple of years. So every year, like clockwork, I make, at a minimum 5% a year. So take 5% of $1.7 million, And I pretty much make that like clockwork every year. And my net worth just goes up and up and up. And I also cash flow on all these and I live off that income. I'm not buying Ferraris. I'm not buying jets. I'm not going to Bali. I live a very simple life, but it's because I have that simple life that all of my income pays for that. And that is my financial freedom and nobody can mess with that. So just keep that in mind. Like you don't have to buy, like, I know a lot of people out there like, oh, I've got 1,000 doors. I got 100 doors. Like you need to find what works for you and be happy with that. I am. Am I going to continue to invest in real estate? Absolutely. And am I going to continue to do larger projects and build bigger stuff and build bigger business? Absolutely. Because I genuinely enjoy it now. But the goal, if you're here and you're listening to this, your responsibility is to get to level 1 financial freedom, which is food, water, shelter, a little bit of savings, coming in relatively passively so that you can exit your job if you want. Like if you want to get out and that's what you want, that's your mission. And I did that in 36 months. It was a little bit less than 36 months, but if you set your goal for like 3 years, like 2 to 3 years, everything that I'm explaining to you is completely achievable. Okay. You're going to have to work. You're going to struggle. You're probably going to lose some money in the process. Also, you're going to have things that are going to break and things that are going to go wrong, right? It's not guaranteed. Okay. But nothing in life is guaranteed. But every day that you wait and you hesitate and you say, oh, I'll do it tomorrow, you're missing out on opportunities and you're missing out on wealth. Okay. So I always encourage everybody to get out there, start learning, get out there and start getting after it. Okay. Any questions? All right. Let's go to the next slide. Okay. So let's talk. How do I find these things? How do I find these properties? Okay. So there is like, I wouldn't say there's an infinite amount of ways of finding real estate, but with the VA loan specifically, you're not doing anything that's going to be like too sexy. It's very simple. Okay. Most VA loan properties that you're going to buy, like everything that I bought, to include the farm where I live now, I found this place on Zillow. And this is my favorite property that I have bought. I absolutely love living here. It's a little less than 3 acres. I've got a huge pond in the back. It is the most peaceful, tranquil place I've ever found. And I've loved living here. And I'll be here for a while too. I built the business. I built all the rentals and everything else first. And now I found a place for me. And this is my fortress of solitude. Okay. I found this place on Zillow. Okay. Nothing cool about that. It's very simple. Zillow is very common. If I had a real estate agent and they had set me up on an MLS search, which is also something that I recommend, they'll send you properties that are within your buy box, and your buy box is whatever you're pre-approved for. Maybe you go a little bit higher than that, and then you circle off the areas that you want. And every property that comes for sale, your real estate agent, they will automatically come to your email, and then you click on them and you look at them and you say, okay, I like this. I don't like that, but I can fix that. And that's how you start your search. Okay. If you want to do real estate more as a professional, you can do driving for dollars. You can do wholesaling. There's a ton of other ways. Okay. All those other ways that I just said, outside of using the VA loan, which you're probably just going to be on the MLS listings or on Zillow. That is where most of or any of the other listing sites, but mostly it's going to come from properties that are actively listed, that are in, good working order, because you have to pass the VA home inspection, right? So the VA loan and the VA loan guidelines, they really don't allow you to buy a rinky-dink property, like most, which is good, because when you're first starting out, you want to have that confidence. Like you want that inspection. Like that is going to help keep you out of the gutter. Okay. But most of the properties that I've bought, like every VA loan property that I have purchased came to me on either Zillow, like I saw it on Zillow, or it came through an MLS listing. Okay. They were on market properties. It was nothing sexy. The 2 singles that I own out of state in Texas Those two properties came off market and we purchased them conventionally. Like we didn't do anything crazy there either. Okay. But that was because I had a community that I had people and my friends and soon to be my partners. They became my partners. They found those deals for me and I was like, these look great. Let's do it. Okay. But most of the deals that you're going to find, they're going to be like on market and you're not going to generally get a smoking deal. You're probably going to pay sticker price, maybe a little bit less. And the VA loan is going to do all of the heavy lifting for you. Okay. That's just been my experience. Experiences may vary. But that's my experience and I can really only speak on that. So, all right. So, and then here, so I'll also break this down. So when you get to your, I'll talk this deal, analyzing these deals here in a second, but I'll talk to you guys through, because I know we've got some new people, but I'll talk to you on the general process for starting with your VA loan. Okay. So the first thing that you want to do, okay, is you want to get tied in with a lender, an NMLS listed, like official, like licensed and certified lender. Okay. And they're going to go through the process. You're going to get your pre-approval letter. Okay. So you're going to have to send in your financials, probably your pay stubs and a bunch of other documents that they're going to need from you and some information. And then they're going to do the gee whiz math stuff. And then they're going to say, hey, Private Smith or, Mike, whatever, you are pre-approved up to this amount. Okay. And that is going to start your buy box. Okay. So you generally can't go over that pre-approval amount. Okay. So you can still look for properties that are going to be a little bit over that. And then obviously you just can't pay that amount. You'd have to put in an offer that's at your ceiling. You can't pay over that. Okay. So what that's going to do is that's going to limit your search to only properties that you can afford with your current financial statement, basically. Right. Then you're going to want to get a real estate agent. Do you need a real estate agent? No, you don't. I did not use a real estate agent to purchase this place. I worked with the listing agent and we eventually negotiated that I would get 3% of the commission. Like I get 3% of that commission to pay my closing costs. And I worked with my attorney and the listing agent, who was actually fantastic. Like she was the best. I worked with her and we negotiated this whole thing. I bought this one conventional. I didn't use my VA, but I bought this conventionally. I put 5% down and occupied the property. And that was it. That was the whole process. It was very simple. Went back and forth, got 1 or 2 seller credits. I paid a little bit under the listing price and purchased and closed on the property. But you're going to need, generally I would recommend, your first one, you probably want to use a real estate agent. I had much more experience. I've been doing this for going on 6 years now. So I don't recommend that from the beginning, although you can, depends on, how confident you are, but I would recommend you get a real estate agent. And then you're also, those are really the two that you need. You need the lender first, then your agent, because your agent is going to help you get set up with your MLS search. Okay. And she or he is going to help you find the properties and you're going to do the showings and they're going to help with the negotiations and advise you on stuff. And you really want those two people. And for those of you watching this, if you go on our website, I have a intro or a lending page. You can go there. We can get you, find out what your pre-approval is, what you're pre-approved up to. You can work with us as a lender. Happy to work with you guys, but I don't always say like, hey, yeah, just work with me because I'm here. I want you to go out and compete lenders. You should do that. You should go ask, you should get a couple of different quotes and you should find the lender that you feel the most comfortable with, that you build the most trust with, that you feel is going to take the best care of you. And you should do that just like in the military, right? You want to find the leaders, you want to find the people that you can trust, that you can work alongside, and that you feel has your best interest at heart. Okay. And that's how you want to build your team. You want to find those types of people. Okay. All right. So let's talk some deal analysis. All right. So generally you want to look for, so what is the 1% rule? The 1% rule is the property should approximately rent for 1% of the purchase price. This is almost non-existent. There are still properties that do this, but not a lot that I've seen. So if it doesn't meet the 1% rule, does that mean you can't buy it? No, absolutely not. I have a property. It's my condo. It's probably worth today about $360,000. Okay. I bought it for, I think, 300 a couple of years ago. It's gone up in value and it's cash flowed ever since. Okay. I market rent on that property. It started out around $2,300 or $2,400. The taxes went up, right? So that eats a little bit of cash flow. Actually, that ate quite a bit of cash flow, but it's still cash flow positive. Okay. Rent has also gone up. I think right now the market rent for that thing is probably about, I have it rented for $2,650. But market rent for that is probably somewhere between 26 and maybe 2,700, maybe 2,750 on the high side, depending on who your tenant is and where they see the value at, right? But let's say it's $2,700. Okay, the 1% rule is a good rule of thumb, but what you really want to work for is once you get your pre-approval, okay, but you really want to know what your mortgage and your expenses and your taxes and everything are going to be. As long as that property is cash flowing, which means the rent, right? I said like 26 to 2,700 is going to be about, you really like a good property is 200 to 300. If you can get into $500 and $600 per month, profit, net, that's fantastic. But really a good single family home or a good rental unit in the realm of like 200 to 300 plus is really good. Okay. That's a pretty good cushion. You're going to get your debt paid down. You're going to cash flow a couple $100 a month, which is good. And then you're going to do that a couple times over. And then you're going to get your general appreciation, right? Like 3 to 5%. Okay. All right. Number 2 is your rental rates. So where do you find those rental rates for the 1% rule? Okay. Lots of different places. You can always look on Zillow, which is not always correct, but it is a decent place to start. But I always go with local property managers and local real estate agents. Okay. You want to look at amenities. You want to look at types of property. You want to look in the area. You want to look at price per square foot. So how many, if it's $1 per square foot and you have 1,000 square foot property and it will rent for about $1,000, that's your comparable rent. Okay. But what you really want to look for is within, like, if you can get down to a half mile, but it really within a square mile of the property that you're looking at, you want to see what homes are actually rented for or what they're at least listed for rent. Okay. And the best way to do this is, I always say people are your best resource, right? Zillow's great, but if you talk to a property manager and you're like, hey, I'm buying this property, I eventually would like to hire a property manager, right? And not all of them are going to do this. Some of them are going to tell you to pound sand and be like, unless you sign a contract with me, I'm not running rents or whatever. That's totally fine. All right. You're going to miss on a bunch of pitches. Just keep going. Keep asking people. Ask your real estate agent, hey, can you pull some rental comps? Do you know anybody that rents in this area? What are rents? What are good amenities? What do they want? Right? In military towns, what do service members always need the most of? Storage. They've always got a ton of shit, right? So if you provide like a TA50 locker, right, and you build that out in the garage, or you have like a mud room in your property or something that is like conveniently, that is convenient for service members, it's not unrealistic to think that that property would actually rent for a little bit more because people are willing to pay for those conveniences, right? If you have an amenity like a hot tub or, cold plunge or a sauna that you leave in there that becomes a part of the rental property, like those are all other ways that you can increase the rent and possibly get even more than market rent. Like most of my properties, I take a lot of care in my properties. I still self-manage everything. I deal with all the problems. I fix everything. I actually enjoy that. I know that sounds crazy, but that's just me. I recommend you start doing that, but if you don't want to deal with that stuff, that's totally fine. Work on getting yourself into property, get a property manager, right? But I also believe that my margins are better. I have phenomenal tenants. I treat them well. I've had basically like no tenant turnover, and I recommend that. Treat them well. If something goes wrong, fix it. You're the business owner. You're the owner of that property. That's your responsibility. That's the price of doing business. Okay. Obviously, good fences make good neighbors. You have a lease, you have rules and laws that you or the tenant can't, cross over. And if they trash your place, then that might happen. But that's why you have great lawyers. That's why you have great people on your team. And that's why you also have a lease in place. Okay. And we'll talk this stuff at probably not today, but at a later date. But everybody freaks out about that stuff. Like, oh, what if they don't pay? I've been doing this for 6 years. I had one issue with a no payment, and I let them go for 2 months with no payment, and they paid me in full in the third month. They went through a hardship, and I was like, hey, if we go over 3 months, that's going to be pushing it. That really makes it tight on my end. But they were like, no, we're still working on it. I was like, hey, I'll work with you. Be a human, right? I didn't have to do that. I could have kicked them out, right? Be a good person, try your best, but also you're running a business. It can only go so far, right? But you as the business owner and as the owner of the property, you get to make those decisions, right? You get to do good when other people out there would just probably vacate and they charge them like people. There's a human side to business. And I believe that service members can do a better job taking care of people. That's again, a lot of the reason why I believe in this stuff, because I believe that we can get better altogether, and you can still make a ton of money and you can still build your own wealth and all your financial freedom while still doing a great job as an owner. So do a good job, do your best, right? And selection of tenants is key. You want to find great tenants and treat them extremely well. And then you have the good handshake. They pay you higher rent. You provide great service. You make money. They get a great place to live. Everybody's happy. Okay. And I recommend you do that. That's just my own personal thing, but I get pretty much above market rents at all my properties. And I have like no issues. My tenants are phenomenal. They never miss payments. It's great. Okay. All right. Analyzing deals, rehab estimates. Okay. Here's the uncomfortable part. You need to learn how to do this shit. Okay. You need to learn how to do it. You need to learn how to rehab, probably some drywall, maybe a little bit of plumbing, kitchen remodels, maybe a little bit of tile. Like you need to become, when you first get started, you need to become a contractor basically. Okay. It's going to take time. You're going to spend a ton of time on YouTube, but you can use contractors, you can use subcontractors, but those also come with a price. So you need to learn how to do this stuff first. Okay. Just like I say in the military for leaders, right? Or anybody, you need to learn. Like I was an officer, right? I wasn't expected to be doing everything. I was an artillery guy. I wasn't expected to be really, really good on the guns. When I was on the fire sports side, I wasn't supposed to be the best FO. I was not supposed to be the best at CAS or the best at call for fire, but I absolutely needed to know if my guys were good or not. I absolutely needed to know the basics. I absolutely needed to know, enough information to be good to either like, if I needed to step in for somebody, but also like advising, this is in the weeds, but advising the commander, like I needed to know my stuff, right? So in order for me with no knowledge in the beginning to be an FSO, I had to learn, I had to train myself, I had to teach myself, and I had to listen to my NCOs and my FOs, and I had to learn and then grow. And then, they kind of like, they obviously ran most of the show, but learning the process, like learning the stuff that you don't necessarily need to know how to do is going to help you to select better people in the future, right? So if you learn the process of property management, right? And you learn the process of a little bit of plumbing and a little bit of, property maintenance and all sorts of stuff. When it comes time for you to find somebody and outsource that, you have a general idea of how it works and what it should cost and like the energy and the time and everything else. And you can now select a better person because you've already done the job a little bit. Okay. Rehab estimates they're not that serious. Like you can find most of this stuff on YouTube, but if you're buying a property, I say that you really want to buy a property. Like the money is made on the purchase. Like the money is made before the purchase, right? And your negotiations with the seller. Okay. And so you might not be able to buy every property, right? But if the rehab is too great, right? Remember I said you're gonna put 0% down generally on with your VA loan. So you will make a ton of money and you'll make a lot of profit if you can manage your expenses. Okay. So if that property, the second you close on it, if it's going to be in decent shape and if anything goes wrong, you can fix it, you're going to be just fine. But, and sometimes Murphy's Law, it always comes into play, but you want to do your best to limit the amount of big expenses off the bat. And if you want to put small stuff into it, it's stuff that you can handle. Like, a water heater, electric or gas, you can, I would, if it's a gas one, I'd kind of bring in a plumber, but the electric water heaters, it's actually not that bad to fix. I've done it a couple times over. Okay. You can do it pretty much on YouTube. Okay. A couple of pipes, like, new sinks, some other small stuff, even some small electric, right? Watch YouTube, be very, very careful. But I've done electric myself. New switches, fans, small stuff, turn the breaker off. You're going to be okay. Right. But if you don't feel comfortable with that stuff, hire somebody and hire the right person and pay them properly and they will take care of your problems. Right. But you really, like on the rehab estimates, you really want to just make sure that the big shit is not going to go wrong. And if it's small stuff, you should be able to figure it out. Okay. Because that's where it's kind of like make or break. Okay. Upside potential for ARV, generally with the VA loan. I will say you could do this. If you go into a property with your VA loan and you use your VA loan to start, and then you put a bunch of work into it, and then maybe a couple months later or a year or so later, you do a refinance with your VA loan while you're still living in the property, you can generally recoup because the property is going to go generally up in value. So you're going to refinance for a higher number. You can most likely suck a lot of that cash back out and get it back. And that's also wealth creation because you're going to get that money back and then you can go invest that elsewhere. So when you do your refinance, your new ARV, your after repair value is generally going to be higher than what you paid for the property because you put money into it. And in real estate, you're rewarded for putting money into a property in the manner that it's generally going to be worth more money because you put money into it, right? That's the beauty of real estate. Okay. So when you go to take that money out and you go to do a refinance, that tax-free cash comes back to you. You are going to have to end up with a higher payment, but ideally you do that ARV, you've increased the value of the property. You've also increased the value of the rent because the property is now nicer and demanding of a higher rent. And ideally those are right in line. And then you can still a couple months, a year or so later, move out. And then you have a great property with great equity that the equity's gone at that point, but you've got a great property with great tenants and a great rental, and you're moving on to the next one. You're taking that cash that you pulled out and go do that with the next one. Okay, I'll talk real quick about some unique value adds. All right, so obviously we talk a lot about military markets, okay? Here is a scenario. Here's a course of action, okay? So you buy a single family home, right? And I was obviously an officer. Let's say I'm talking to a bunch of lieutenants, okay? And there's some lieutenant out here that's probably going to listen to this, and I hope he makes it or she makes a ton of money, okay? What are the amenities that lieutenants generally want, okay? They generally want maybe a hot tub, right? Relax after work, but like it's on the fancier side. Almost guarantee you if you put a home gym in your garage or in one of the rooms or in the basement and you're doing room rentals, I can almost guarantee you're going to get a ton of demand because you have a home gym. What else? If you buy a sauna and you put a sauna in there and a cold plunge, everybody wants all these health benefits and these cold plunge and the sauna and the gym. I can almost guarantee you that you will make a killing by renting out rooms in your property if you add a cold plunge, a sauna, and a home gym into your property. You will get like every lieutenant in town that's going to pay a premium because everybody, all get paid great, right? And they're going to pay you and I say this is a good metric. If you do room rentals in your area for your rank, let's say like, second lieutenant or first lieutenant, generally, generally half of BAH is what you can get for a room rental generally, right? So if it's $1,600, you can generally get a room rental. If BAH is $1,600, you can reasonably expect to pay about half that. Sometimes it's a little bit more, right? But if you can save somebody else half of their BAH and you can take half of the BAH for renting those rooms, right? If you get, even $500 per room and you have 3 bedrooms, right? Or 4 bedrooms and you live in the 4th bedroom, or you live in the basement and walk up the stairs to go to the, use the bathroom, and you live in the basement and you rent out all 4 of those rooms for $500 each, that's $2,000. That is fantastic. Even earning an extra $1,000 by renting 2 rooms for $500 or $600 or whatever, that's still fantastic. Okay. So you want to think in terms of who you want to be your ideal tenant. And if you're doing a single family home, or imagine you did like a duplex or a quadplex, and you put a hot tub as an amenity for the entire complex of those 4 units, and then everybody can use that hot tub, right? Having the access to a hot tub is easily good for $50 to $100 extra. Unlimited access to the hot tub, easily $50 extra on rent, right? So if you have a quadplex, you pretty much just generate an extra $200 a month by adding that hot tub. Fantastic. Okay. All right. Any questions? That's a lot. You guys are getting a lot of information right now. Okay. All right. Let's talk selecting your team. Okay. So earlier on this call, we said that the two most important people are going to be your lender. Okay. Your lender is going to give you your pre-approval. They're going to do the closing. They're going to do everything on kind of the money finance side, right? And your real estate agent. Do you need a real estate agent? No, you technically don't, but I would recommend highly, okay, that you use a real estate agent, a licensed real estate agent, to help you navigate at least your first property purchase, okay? Those are the only two that you really, really need, okay? Those are like mandates, 1 and 2, okay? The other couple here that I've listed are nice to have, but you still want to have them on the team. Okay. So if you want to go scale and you want to make this stuff completely passive, you're going to need a property manager. You're going to need somebody to manage your properties while you're off doing bigger and better things. Okay. The property manager they're going to set maintenance schedules. They are going to eat into a little bit of your profit, right? And usually property managers are somewhere between 8, I've seen it up to 11%, but usually it's about 8 to 10% of monthly rent, right? So if you rent your property for $2,000, okay, you're going to be paying that property manager $200 plus any other maintenance and other stuff they're going to bill you back for, right? But you're going to eat about 10% of that total rent. Plus, usually they do like first full month's rent of a new leasing fee. They'll keep like sometimes half of that. Sometimes they'll keep all of that. Okay, it's experiences may vary. But that's generally what to expect for a property manager. However, they're usually really good at keeping your property occupied. You don't have to deal with all the bullshit problems. Okay. They will handle all of that stuff. Okay. Contractors. So unless you're doing like a brand new build, you don't need a general contractor. Okay. These are the 3 most important contractors that I've come across. Okay. From all of the years that I've been doing this, all the properties I've had, I ran an Airbnb company. We had about 18 units. And I ran that for a couple of years. All right. I have seen pretty much everything in residential real estate and all the shit that can go wrong. Okay. Number 1 is your plumber. Okay. Especially if it is on the pressure side. Okay. If you get a pipe burst or something happens, immediate, get it fixed. It's going to cause damage. It's going to mess up your drywall. If it's coming in from the ceiling, it's going to bleed down. Plumber is the guy or girl that you want on speed dial, and you want them to be really fucking good at their job. Okay. Second is HVAC. Why HVAC? Because you know what's going to happen? It's happened to me tons of times, unfortunately, tons of times over. The shit goes out when it's really cold and you need heat, and it's going to go out when it's really hot and you need air. Okay. You can learn, I worked with a ton of mini splits. You can learn a lot of that stuff. You can fix it. Sometimes the intake, like the condenser sometimes gets all gunked up. Sometimes you got to clean the filters. Some of that stuff you can do on your own, but if your HVAC takes a dump, you want a licensed contractor for heating and cooling on speed dial, and you want those guys to be great. Okay. Electrician, I also say this, if you want to move some bigger stuff around, if you got to do any box work, you can learn to do that. But if it's bigger stuff, I really do recommend electrician, because like you don't want to mess up that stuff. Okay. That stuff can be plumbing. You're going to get wet, might smell like shit if it's, sewer lines or whatever. Electric, do not mess with that. Okay. I've done it before, but I did it at my own risk. And they were small jobs, but electric, you really want somebody that knows exactly what they're doing with current, because you make one wrong mistake with electric, could get pretty bad. Okay. And then these last two are also important, especially like your lawyer, your contract lawyer, your real estate attorney. This is really more so as you grow, like legal structure, liability protection. It is the cost of doing business. You're going to need a lawyer, and you're going to need a CPA or an accountant to help you with your books. Okay. That's going to be tax advice. You really need those two. Those, like I talked to my attorney, like I'm doing bigger stuff now. We're out of kind of residential real estate, not as much. We're getting into commercial. We're getting into much larger stuff, partnerships, joint ventures, contracts. Like I'd probably talk to my lawyer once a week at least. That is the price of doing business. Though a good lawyer will save you over the lifetime, probably millions of dollars, right? But a good lawyer will save you easily a multiple of probably like 4 to 5 times what you're paying them easily. Like lawyers will save you tens of thousands of dollars over the lifetime. Yes, they're expensive. $250 is like the baseline hourly rate for a lawyer. Okay. But just let something go wrong that could have been prevented by bringing in a lawyer for a couple $100 an hour early on. Let something go wrong and then watch how expensive that's going to be. Okay. Bring in your attorney, find a good one, interview them, and treat them great. You can become friends with them, right? You want them to be a part of your team so they can keep you protected in all of your contracts and everything, and they can be expert advice. Okay, that's what they're there for, right? They're there to protect you. Same thing with an accountant. Accountant will keep you in the green, right, or I guess in the black on the tax side to help you with your taxes, and they're going to do this thing. Which, if you're watching this, they're going to do this thing, which is pretty fucking cool. Okay, most people, I'll let you know a little secret. Most people go to the tax man, they go to their CPA once a year and figure out how much they're going to get fucking destroyed on taxes. Okay. Business owners, investors, real estate investors, everybody else, they do what's known as tax planning. Okay. So tax prep is at the end of the year, and that's for everybody else. And they're like, gee, I'm paying so many taxes. Tax planning helps you to make a plan with your accountant to minimize your taxes and bring them down to zero. Okay. You can do this legally. Millions of people do this. The tax code, here's another secret. The tax code is a treasure map. Okay. And it's tens of thousands of pages. Okay. And most of it says, do this, stupid, and we as the government will charge you little to no tax. Okay. And the reason it does that is for 2 reasons. One, that's the way the financial system is structured. It's fractional reserve banking, and it incentivizes debt. Okay. That is how the dollar is created. Okay. Money is created through debt. Okay. That's a whole other rabbit hole to go down, but that's what it is. Okay. And additionally, the government, I've said this, I work for the government, I can say this. Everything the government touches, I don't care who's in the White House, everything the government touches turns to stone. Okay. So you don't really want the government touching business, and you don't want it touching housing, honestly. Okay. Because those 2 things the government needs help with, right? So what is real estate? Providing homes for citizens. What is entrepreneurship? Another debt levered, right? Providing jobs. So the government's like, hey, if you provide homes or you provide jobs for the citizens, we'll cut you a break on taxes. That is the law, whether you like it or not. Okay. You can choose to do it, or you can choose to not do it. The tax code for Bezos and Musk and all the billionaires and everybody else is the same freaking tax code as it is for Joe Schmuckatelli on the street corner. Okay. It's the same tax code. The problem is Schmuckatelli doesn't know anything about how the tax code works. It's a knowledge gap, okay? So you need to be boring and you need to have these conversations. You need to start understanding this shit because that's what's holding you back, okay? I'll leave you with this for this slide, okay? When it comes to CPAs and accountants, it's not how much you make, it's how much you keep, okay? It is not, I'll say this again, it is not how much you make, it is how much you keep, okay? That is a wealth creation strategy, all right? It's not how much you make, it's how much you keep, okay? All right. So now I'm going to talk, I'll take a quick break, but any questions? I know we've had 0 questions the entire time. Any questions up until this point? All right. Nothing heard. Straight into lessons learned. Okay. So I'm going to talk these 2 lessons learned. Okay. So I talk a lot about the price of doing business. Okay. You're going to lose money. You're going to get angry. You're going to get frustrated. People are going to betray you. They're going to steal from you. They're going to do shoddy work. Shit is going to happen. Okay. It's okay. That's okay. I'm telling you this now. So if you don't want to deal with any of that bullshit, go back to whatever it is that you're doing. And I wish you the best with that. Okay. But if you want the chance or the opportunity to live a completely purpose-driven life, if you want to have financial freedom, if you want to have really anything that you can envision or dream in your brain, for me, that was traveling. I spent 3 months traveling around the country. I did 12,000 miles on a road trip all around the country. I did like everywhere you can imagine. It was the most beautiful, fantastic trip I've ever had in my life. Nobody told me what to do because I was financially free. Because prior to that trip and today, I always understand it is the price of doing business. Shit's going to go wrong, but I choose to pay that price because the price of doing business, I've lost money, lost tens of thousands of dollars, a lot of money, okay? And I'm not even that big. I'm not like a big multimillionaire. I'm not barely getting by, but like I'm pretty reasonable, okay? You will lose a ton of money, but I've also made a ton of money. 10x, 20x what I've lost easily, okay? In the last 3 years, when I first started on this journey, I'll tell you this before I get started. When I first started on this journey, I really didn't have much to my name in savings and investments and everything else. I 10x that in the last 2 or 3 years because I did the same stuff that I'm explaining to you guys here for free. I'm giving you free advice. So there's 3 people on here. I hope more people listen to this, but that's a real thing. I really did that, and I live a fantastic, fantastic life. I love every day. I've never had a bad day. Okay, the price of doing business, I pay it every single day. I do it because I love it, and I'm trying to get more people to understand that. So, all right, without further ado, let's talk 2 lessons learned. Okay, so the price of doing business. So I will tell you, when I first got started in real estate, I made a big mistake, okay? But it could have been a much bigger mistake. So I went into contract on a property and I put $1,000 of earnest money down, okay? I did not have a good real estate agent. I had a real estate agent that was kind of trash, actually. Was not very good at his job and was really just trying to get me to buy the property, right? It was like I was negotiating with him where he should have been negotiating with the seller. I was brand new. I had no freaking clue what I was doing, okay? So as I'm in contract, I ended up bringing in a friend of mine's dad who had been in real estate for like 30 years. And we had gone through this whole process, and I forget the exact particulars, but he basically was like, hey, man, this is like 70 to 80K in rehab. And it's not even that great of an area. And it's not even that great of a property. And I was like, all right, well, shoot. So I had boloed a couple of other things and basically ended up, I lost my earnest money. And I'm sure I probably could have taken my agent to freaking court or done something, like had some recourse, but I was like, fuck this. I'm not working with this guy anymore. I lost $1,000. I wrote that off. Okay. I didn't cry. I didn't complain. I was like, damn, that's on me. I should have known better. Okay. That is the price of doing business. That's my lesson to learn. Month later, I found a phenomenal real estate agent who actually cared and was actually really good at her job. We found the absolute perfect property for me. We found a condo that was perfect. It was prime real estate. The price was right. I knew that it would be a good rental. I knew I was going to live there, and I did live there for about 15 months. And that I say it was like that was the condo that built me. That was during COVID and everything else. If you know my story, like that's where I really got started. Okay. And it turned out to be a good news story. Okay. I rented it after that. And then I went on and I bought my first duplex with my VA loan. And from that first duplex that I looked at, that would have been a catastrophe. And I lost that earnest money. I waited about a year and a half and I bought this other duplex. And because I had that little bit of tactical patience, I waited for my pitch and I bought the condo first because that was the best thing at the time. Then I went and bought that duplex. That duplex is the best investment to date that I have made. I'm going to explain why with my point 2. So first part is you're going to make mistakes. You're going to feel stupid. Okay. All of this stuff is stuff that I have done personally. I lost my earnest money. Should I have lost my earnest money? No. I probably messed up a million different things. You're going to make mistakes. It's going to be okay. You're going to lose money. It's going to be okay. Right? The juice that you need to squeeze out of that little opportunity is why. How did I do it? How can I do better in the future? If you cultivate that mindset, that infinite mindset, like it doesn't matter what happens to me, like $1,000, that's throwaway money. That's a pittance, right? I'm going to build this so big that that's not even going to matter. Okay. So always have that mental frame and that mental mindset of like, I'm going to make mistakes. It's going to be okay. I'm going to get through it. I'm going to navigate it. And there'll be greener pastures beyond this experience because I'm going to learn, right? I'm not going to lose. I'm either going to win or I'm going to learn. I do a lot of learning. I did a lot of learning when I first got started. Okay. All right. So now let's go to the second or the first duplex that I purchased. All right. This duplex, I'm going to give you some really, really tactical advice on how I was able to maximize this duplex. Okay. Again, wait for your pitch. When you see it, you're gonna be like, man, this is the place. I knew it from the second I saw it. I was like, this is the place. Okay. So here's a couple things about this property. I was able to buy this property and make money immediately off the bat. Okay. So here's a very practical and tactical tip. Okay. I didn't know this in the beginning, but my lender explained this to me. And I had talked to another couple, I talked to some other people and they all corroborate, they'll explain this. So with the VA loan, you do not have to occupy the property for the first 60 days. You have to occupy by like day 60 or day 61. Okay. You have to occupy the property, but you don't have to occupy for those first 60 days. Okay. So what I did was this property happened. I mean, this all was teed up. It was like a dream, right? But you can do this. And I've coached people through this and they've made thousands of dollars by doing this one thing. Okay. If you buy a property that is rented on both sides, I bought a duplex, right? But if you buy a property, even a single family, as long as you have in writing that tenant, let's say you buy a duplex, you have to have in writing from the seller that person, let's say it's a 30-day close, you give yourself a 90-day window, okay? 30-day close, they terminate the contract like part of you buying the property is you have to move into one of the doors. So one of the tenants has to move out. That's on the seller to deal with, okay? The property I was buying, one of the tenants was on month to month. So they gave them 90 days. So they had a 30-day close, right? And then they had 60 days. So they had a total of 90 days, okay? So they terminated their lease and they were like, hey, you got to move. Tenant was like, okay, I'm going to look for a property and I'm going to move out in 90 days. Okay. So I closed in 30. And then now that I've closed on the property, I own that property. And your mortgage will take usually about a month. But for me at that time, I think it was just about 2 months. So I had 60 days that I just bought this property and I had really no expenses. I paid water during that time. It was like $50 a month. Okay. I collected $750 on one side and $750 on the other side. So I collected $1,500 for the first month and $1,500 for the second month. To buy that property, I put $2,700 down cash at closing. And what this is called is, what is your cash on cash return? How much cash did you put down and how fast did you get it back? Okay. I got my cash back in 60 days. I put $2,700 down. I collected $3,000 in rent. I paid $100 basically for that time in water, and I was still up, like $200, and I got my cash back immediately. I occupied the property. I took about 3 or 4 months. We did new carpet. We did new paint. We remodeled the kitchen. I put some simple flooring down. I financed all of the appliances on this side on a Best Buy credit card for 0% for 24 months. So I got all new appliances. We made some serious upgrades to this place, right? After those 4 or 5 months or so, I had talked to the neighbor next door. She's like, yeah, I'm thinking about moving out. I was like, no problem. You just let me know when. As soon as she moved out, and she's still paying me rent, $750 every month, like clockwork. Great tenant, right? And she's paying me rent, so she's paying down my mortgage. Then I go to switch, right? So she's going to move out, and I rented that property. The rent was originally $750. I got it up to market rent. Actually, it was above market rent, and I had a tenant. She stayed with me for, I think, 24 months, and she paid $1,600 and a $50 flat water fee. I think maybe it was 25. That's 50 between the two. But basically was able to, over double the rent, or about double the rent on that property, right? So now that was at the time most of the mortgage. It might have even been the full mortgage. So now I do the same thing on the other side. I'm in there, and I did this one nicer because I knew at the time I was running a short-term rental company. I knew at that time that I was going to turn that into a Airbnb and short-term rental. So I was like, I'm going to make this nice. I'm going to make everything great. I'm going to get some murals. I'll paint the murals on the walls. We'll make nicer amenities. I'll redo the bathroom a little bit nicer. Same did the carpet, did the flooring, painted the cabinets again, made them nice and aesthetic, did a ton of work, moved out a little over a year later, ran it as an Airbnb. The cash flow on this property, that Airbnb cash flowed on the low end, $1,800, and on the high end in peak season, somewhere between $2,500 and I think about $2,800. Okay. So I was making $1,600 on one side and, let's say $2,000 or so, maybe a little bit more on the other side. Right. So that's like, you're making well north of $3,000. I think in peak months, I was bringing in somewhere between $4,000 to $5,000. Okay. The reason I tell you this whole story is you can, and that property, I mean, that was a couple $1,000s a month in profit. That was like half my paycheck, right? So if you do this right and you find the right property and you learn, you do all this other stuff, you can have life-changing money. For me at the time, I was single, right? I'm still single. Like, that's life-changing money for somebody that doesn't really have much else to provide for other than themselves. One property, the reason I care about this stuff so much, you can change your life with one property. God forbid you do it a couple times over like I've done. You have the opportunity to, just on the real estate side, not even on the entrepreneur side, not even starting your own, side hustle or business or whatever. You have the opportunity to possibly change your life. Is it guaranteed? Fuck no. Is it going to hurt sometimes? Yes, you're probably going to lose some money. Okay. But you have the opportunity. Okay. And the worst type of regret, in my opinion, all right, and a lot of other, successful people have said this. There's two types of regret. There's type 1, damn, I shouldn't have done that. That sucked, whatever. But then there's the type 2 regret, okay? And the type 2 regret really freaking sucks. That's, I didn't try. I didn't do this. I should have asked that person out. I should have asked for, a raise. I should have done this. I should have bought this property. I should have bought real estate years ago. I should have started that company, right? But you didn't. And then you get older and you can't go back in time and you can't do it again. You're only young once, right? Take the risk, believe in yourself, educate yourself, and know that you're more than capable of doing everything that I've just explained on this call with no fucking problems. I promise you, you're more than intelligent and more than capable of doing that. Okay. So, and I say that and I mean it. I genuinely mean that. I believe in you, even though I don't know you. I know that you can do it because if you're watching this, you're probably in the military. If you're in the military, you are competent enough to do this. Okay. You have to pass some form of selection criteria for mental capacity to get into the military, right? Insert joke about infantry guys, of course, whatever. But even those guys, they're my friends. Okay. Everybody has the potential to be great. You just have to go out there and fucking take action. You have to go do it. Okay. All right. So we're winding down here. So let's go over some action items before the next class. Okay. First thing. Okay. Real estate side. So we've covered all of this stuff. You need to get out there and get to work. Okay. First thing you're going to do, you're going to build your team, right? After this session, probably within the next 24 hours, probably get it tomorrow. I'm going to send out an email with all this stuff. You guys can have my link for lending. We're going to work on building out. We've got a bunch of other real estate agents throughout the country, primarily in Army and military markets that we can send to our list. But build your team. Find your lender. If it's me, if it's us, fantastic. Happy to have you. Happy to work with you. Honored. Okay. If it's not, by all means, go find somebody else, but find a lender. Okay. Get your pre-approval and figure out what it is that you qualify for. All right. Get a real estate agent. Find one, interview them, figure out what's good, figure out what's bad, find one that you like and you believe is going to be in your best. They're going to have your best interest at heart. Okay. Get your pre-approval, determine your buy box. Okay. I want you to also go out and whatever market you're looking at buying in, I want you to analyze one deal every single day for the next 7 days until our course, until our next class on next Wednesday. Okay. And then I want you to create a house hacking strategy. Okay. Figure out your, my 7, it was my initial 7 properties, right? Figure that out. I did single, duplex, farm. Okay. That was me. My financial freedom came before the farm. Okay. The farm was like the cherry on top, right? Figure out your house hacking strategy. Are you going to buy a single family? Are you going to do room rentals? Are you going to buy duplex? What are you going to do? Figure out your house hacking strategy. Figure out how much money you need to get to your financial freedom and start building that plan today. Okay. Here's the other 3 things, and we'll send you these out. This is for your personal development. Okay. I'm sorry. You have to work hard. You got to read books. You got to learn shit. You got to do things. Okay. Can't help you if you're not willing to do this. Okay. Number 1, I want you to read Burr. Okay. I think I actually have it. Might have it on my wall over here, unless I left it out to somebody. Don't think I have it here. It might be somewhere else. Okay. Burr is a fantastic book. It's going to help you to understand some different real estate strategies. Burr stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and then repeat. Okay. Very good. It'll help you learn about the rental market. It'll help you estimate some of your rehab costs. It's a really very simple book. It's the Bigger Pockets guys. They're awesome. Ton of knowledge. I learned from them very early on. Go read that book. It's going to help you with real estate investing. I guarantee it will get you smarter. Okay. And then additionally, these 2 are not specific to real estate, but we will send these out to you. We've got PDFs for you. I want you to build your dream manager guide. We'll explain that in the email. Build your dream manager guide, which is basically you need to figure out where the fuck it is you want to go in life. What's your big dream? Where do you want to go? How much do you want to be worth? What do you want your life to look like? This guide that we have is going to get you there. Okay. It's going to help you to visualize where it is. That was mindset. That was the first part we talked about. This dream manager guide is going to help you lock down your goals and your dreams and your aspirations. And it's going to help you to visualize it on a daily basis. Okay. Then you're going to build your board of directors, and we're going to use the dream manager guide and the board of directors in coordination with ChatGPT to help you start visualizing and help you to start getting expert advice from people on the internet. You're going to build your own board of directors of specialists and the most influential people throughout history. And they're going to help you. I say this as a joke, but it's kind of serious, as like your spirit guides. Like ChatGPT, I've done this. I've done this personally. It's changed my life. I talked about this on podcasts that I was on the other day. People have been like, dude, this thing with the board of directors is fucking unreal. It's like, it is helping me to see the world so clearly. It's so wild. But it's something that changed my life. I had this idea like on a whim. I was like, I'm going to do this, and blah, blah, blah. I started doing it. I was like, I got to tell the world about this. This is the coolest shit ever. Okay. So I want you guys to do this. Don't worry if you don't write all this down, take a screenshot of it, but we will send all of this stuff out in an email. We'll send you the links for BRRRR, all of the books that you need to buy or that we recommend. The Dream Manager Guide, we'll send you all this stuff out in an email after today's class. You'll probably get it in the next 24 hours. So if you haven't heard, we are also doing private coaching. If you're interested in that, there's a link on our website. We want to work with you. We're looking for eager, hungry people that want to take their real estate investing and entrepreneurship to the next level. And they want to get to their financial freedom within the next 36 months. Ideally, it's 12 to 24, but we can pretty much guarantee as long as you put in the effort, we can get you there in 36 months. Okay. Completely reasonable, completely attainable. But you gotta bring the initiative and you gotta bring the tenacity. So if you guys don't have any other questions, I'm gonna hop off here. It's been a pleasure. Hope you guys learned something from this. And when you wake up tomorrow, get after it, get after this stuff, and choose to be fucking great. Okay. Have a great night. Talk to you soon. I hope everybody's having a great fucking day. Thank you.